Well, we're in the week lead up to the greatest day in motorsports this coming Sunday, Memorial Day weekend. We've got the Monaco Grand Prix in the morning, the Indianapolis 500 in the afternoon, and the Coca-Cola 600 at night to cap things off. So 1,100 miles plus however many miles Monaco is when it's all said and done. Kyle Larson's running the double. We'll get into that. That's the elephant in the room. But joining me for this episode, I am, of course, Adam Cheek at Adam and Cheek on Twitter. Joining me are three very special guests from Frontstretch.com. Tom Blackburn, Alex Gintz, and Michael Massie. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Mr.
Yeah,
Ch-
you know.
Well,
We're
so
all excited.
well, I wanted to loop you guys in because we can all talk at some length or another about F1, IndyCar, and NASCAR. Massie, you will be at Indianapolis this weekend for the 500. Alex, if I'm not mistaken, you are as well.
hmm
So you guys will be covering the Larson half of the double, or the Indy half of the Larson double, and the 500 as a whole. Justin Newgarden's the defending winner. We'll get into that as well. But first off, I just want to get your guys, thoughts, because this is a day I think we all look forward to every single year. You wake up at like 8:30, 8:45 or so in terms if we're watching at home. You guys won't be. You guys will be at the track. But you wake up like 8:45 and you're kind of seated for a good 12, maybe 13 hours, depending on how long the race goes. And you get a few breaks here and there to stretch your legs, go and eat, get a snack, whatever, take care of some stuff, but it's pretty constant. So I'll start with you, Tom. What are your thoughts on this day? Do you look forward to it every year? What do you usually try to do for it?
Yeah, so I go to the Indianapolis 500 every year
Yeah.
with my family. However, I would say that this is the best day because you get to the track at Indianapolis, and in the past, they had actually used to broadcast the Formula One race on the big screen, so you could actually watch it once you got there. And they embraced the whole idea, probably accepting the fact that folks were going to go home and watch the NASCAR race once the 500 was over. So it's embraced, it's known, and now with the double going on, people are going to be watching to see what the results are of Kyle Larson's 1,100 miles.
Alex, how about you?
So normally I would take the day off work and get up super early to catch Monaco and caffeinate as much as I could without killing myself throughout the day to make it through the end of Charlotte. This week going to cover the 500 on site is a bit different, but it is, I think Danny Peters called it last year, it's motorsport nirvana, 100%. Monaco, I have my opinions, but the 500 is always great, and the 600 most years I've not regretted watching it, so it's always very exciting.
And we'll get into the Monaco opinions, and also the fact that the 600 has been way better the last couple of years than it had been for quite some time with the next
Mhm.
gen car. We'll get into that. Massey, how about you? What do you always like to do on Sundays?
yeah, so the way it usually works for me is I'll set an alarm to wake up for when Monaco starts. I'll start watching it, and then I'll usually wake up when they're doing the whole podium celebration thing. So that's usually my extent of watching Monaco. And then of course I'm on the couch the rest of the day for Indy 500 and Coke 600. Unless our family decides to do something for those days. But this year, I'll be in Indy with these two guys, and I imagine all of us will have to get to the track so early that we'll be watching Monaco there at the track. So I'm excited for that new experience. And then, like for the 600, I'll be flying back to Virginia. So hopefully, they have some good in flight entertainment, and I'm able to watch the race on my laptop on a flight back.
Well, I know I've done the same thing that Alex did. I've taken off work in the past that when I would work weekends to specifically watch the race. This weekend, I'll be getting up pretty early on Sunday to get all three in, and then I can go to sleep at a decent time Sunday night, catch up on some sleep on Memorial Day. Looking forward to that being a holiday. And, it's something that it's just always fun because it's like a day built into itself. You don't have to really, it's like I got to plan around this, this, and this. It's race, 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 morning, afternoon, evening. And okay, so why don't we go in chronological order here? Let's start with that. Monaco, Okay, I have a split opinion on this in that the racing is never all that great. I personally love driving the track on the video games. It's fun, it's challenging, it's a hell of a task to undertake. But okay, Alex, I'll start with you because you seem to be raring to talk about this. Monaco, what are your thoughts? Why are you so highly opinionated about it?
Because forgive me, I promise I'll say something general to make this appealing to your audience. I genuinely believe that Monaco should be dropped from the Formula One calendar. Thank
Wow.
you, Massie. But before we get there, you have to give the devil its due, of course. There is no race on the Formula One calendar that is more iconic and steeped in history than the Monaco Grand Prix.
Mhm.
It's the only track with the legacy of, staying on the calendar in location the way it has. My brother-in-law once came home when I was like 13 after a night out, barely hanging on to consciousness, and sat down and watched me play it on F1 2013. And he said, "Oh, damn Europeans closing down these cities to erect these racetracks." And there's something iconic about that. Everybody knows Monaco. The problem with Monaco, like you said, is that the race scene is very rarely good because these cars have gotten so big and so heavy over the years that there's really no place on the track where it's worth the risk for the driver to attempt to pass. That being said, a win around Monaco means a ton because assuming that you qualified on pole, because that's how you win, you kept the car out of the barriers for 161 miles around this claustrophobic street circuit. But, we can't get away from the fact that qualifying for Monaco is much better than the race for Monaco every year. And for me, as much as I love the track for its history and its symbolism, it's a track where you have a qualifying session to determine a race,
Mhm.
not a race that builds on a qualifying session.
Tom, you in the same boat?
He
Yeah.
looks angry at me.
Yeah, I agree. Like the race is so poor to watch. It's just not very entertaining. The view is great. And you're driving through the racetrack looks challenging as all get out. Like I wouldn't want to be a driver. I've never been very good at the video game at it, so that tells me that I wouldn't be able to do it in real life. My son can do it, but I sure can't. And I use that rewind quite a bit. And the racing, it's a great race, but this is what I look at it from prestige. If you were to ask drivers, let's say in NASCAR or IndyCar, and say, what Formula One race would you want to do? I'm not certain that Monaco would be one that would pop up because it's not a competitive race.
Mhm.
Maybe, some of the other tracks, the Belgian Silverstone, whatever, I'm not a big Formula One guy, so I don't know all the tracks. But Monaco isn't the one that pops up in people's mind because it's just there's not much to it as far as competitiveness. You ask them about which IndyCar track, they're going to say Indy 500. You ask them which NASCAR track they want to do Daytona 500. It's up in the air for which Formula One race you might want to do. So the prestige is there, but I think it's really very insular as far as to the Formula One crowd. So
Well, I'm sorry, I can't relate to you guys. I've won on Monaco multiple times. Yeah, I'm a multi-time Monaco winner, so
what level of difficulty did you put it on? Did you turn it
Yeah.
all the way down to easy, like rookie or something like that? Don't
this
Let me
was
lie
look
to
on
at my
us.
F1
F1
2016
2012. I
career
have
mode real
no
quick.
idea.
You
But
wrecked everybody. You found a paintball mode and you wrecked everybody. Whatever.
well,
And people a corner.
I turned off all the penalties and just cut through pit road every lap.
Okay.
Massey, as a primarily NASCAR guy, how about you? How do you feel about Monaco and you tuning in every year? Because, like you said, you usually fall asleep during it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, for one, I appreciate that it's referenced in the song Mambo Number 5 by Lou Bega, I think the guy's name was. He says a little bit of Monaco in my life. Um,
Get your ass out.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Boo this man.
but yeah,
Eject.
there hasn't been an entertaining Monaco Grand Prix since Tony Stark fought Mickey
I was gonna reference that too, Massie.
Come through the screen at you right now.
But yeah, I guess any that don't end without that kind of disaster or success. But it's about the prestige. I look at it as kind of like the people that go to like the Kentucky Derby, where it's all about just going there, looking fancy on your yacht in this situation. And every once in a while you turn around and say, "Oh, so and so's leading."
How about
I feel like that's kind of the atmosphere you get there, which, hey, if somebody offered me the chance to go hang out on one of those yachts and go watch it, I'd be there tomorrow. But it's just not that good of a race. Like F1, it's like the epitome. It's what I visualize when people like take dumps on F1 is Monaco. Like there's much more competitive tracks on their circuit.
As the F1 person, quote unquote, on this episode, I didn't choose that role, by the way. That's a testament in Formula One's defense, what Tom and Massie have said about there's so much better going on in the F1 calendar that it kind of it makes Monaco's prestige a bit ironic. That says a lot to F1's credit about the product it produces, just in terms of bringing some kind of significance to the countries that host these races. Like Tom mentioned, Spa in Belgium, that is the track that they would want to do, by the way. Silverstone, very historic. Monza, same thing, Temple of Speed. Um, Lord, once they get to the Sokol circuit in Kazakhstan, that'll be one of them too. I hope. I'll make it so. But man, of all the races you could have on Memorial Day, there is not a worse track, except maybe Hungary, to bring F1 down relative to the rest of this trifecta.
Well, okay, then I'll do
Move it.
rapid fire. What track would you pick if you had your choice of the schedule?
Oh, Spa, 100%.
Massie?
I don't know.
I see Tom nodding, so I think he's in agreement.
Yes, I agree with Spa, and thanks. That was Alex. That was the one I was trying to think of because I know that's the one that a lot of IndyCar drivers mentioned. That and Monza.
Massey's like, which one's
Monza.
in America?
Monza would be fun.
Yeah. Miami. Let's do Miami again.
Yeah.
Monza for sure. Monza's a gorgeous track.
Monza's up there. I like driving Brazil a lot on the games, so that might be up there. Spa would be good.
Imola.
Yeah, we just raced there. So actually, that brings me to that point. Max Verstappen, the most recent winner, the defending winner of Monaco, and the defending champion. But there's been some changes with Red Bull there's a little bit of people unsure if they're going to keep up their dominance. But it feels like they kind of put that to bed a little bit this past weekend with the win. But do you think Max Verstappen will end up winning again, or is this going to be a little bit of a toss-up?
You can't really bet against Verstappen in any capacity now. Sorry. If he qualifies on the front row, it's over. And barring a 2016 Daniel Ricciardo situation where the team just forgets to have his tires ready at the pit stop, then maybe. But the one to watch, just because fate has been so cruel to him historically, I think, is Charles Leclerc. The only Monegasque driver in recent Formula One history has yet to finish better than sixth at his home Grand Prix, and for the record, has only finished his home Grand Prix three times in the 5 or 6 times he's driven there.
Yeah.
He qualified really well in 2021, I think it was, and then had a car issue on the way to the grid. It's just been hurdle after hurdle for him. So
2022 strategy doomed him that race. Sergio,
has he ever been close, or
No.
has he just not been competitive at all?
He's been fast, and he finished, I want to say, 4th in 2022 and 6th last year. But 4th at Monaco might as well be 15th at Silverstone or wherever, because you're not going to make up that track position barring divine intervention. So I would watch him this weekend.
I think the thing is too, it's like I finally watched that the Braun GP docuseries that Hulu, Disney, whatever did. And Rubens Barrichello says between winning a title and winning your home Grand Prix, he'd rather win his home race than win a title. Like it means that much. Tom, Massie, you guys have any takes on Verstappen versus the field?
It's the storyline that keeps on going, and yet they still continue to get 2 million people to watch these races. It's incredible. Well, the day that the Monaco race outdraws the Indy 500, Alex and our heads are going to explode on TV. I mean, it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be the Max show, the Max parade. Um, he was kind enough to let there be a race a little bit ago he didn't win in Miami. And, that's his good deed for
Yeah, a
the
little bit
rest
of
of the year.
charity. Yeah.
Yeah, his charity. That's his tax write-off. So he'll just lead the whole way.
Well, I know with the way the lineup is, we have 5 previous winners: Fernando, Daniel, Max, Lewis, and Sergio. We have 5 previous Monaco winners in the field this year. Do any of them have a shot against Max at all?
Now that you've asked, no. And
All right,
and
all right, fair enough. Okay, so then I'll convert over to this. Any surprise winners? If there's going to be a surprise winner or a not Max winner, who are you picking?
I want to pick Sergio Perez
Mhm.
because he is a former winner. I know I'm contradicting myself, but he has been fast around Monaco. He's won already. The problem is Max Verstappen, I think, like psychologically broke Sergio Perez beyond repair last year. And now we have to look at McLaren, I mean, they've just shown up out of nowhere with this upgrade package in Miami
Right.
and nearly took the past 2 races. And if Norris somehow puts it together around the streets of Monaco on Saturday, maybe we actually get a race, but you know, no.
All right, so then if you have to pick someone not Max, Massey, Tom, who are you guys going with?
I'm gonna go with Lando Norris. Oh, we
Okay.
just talked about this on the previous podcast that Alex and I filmed. There's something fascinating about a guy who wins his first race, and then there's kind of like a honeymoon period where they are like unstoppable. And I feel like right now Lando is riding some sort of a momentum that is psychologically going to make him think he's better than Max Verstappen right now, the 400 straight race winner. So I feel like it's going to be Lando.
Dang it, I was gonna say Lando as well.
You can say it too, Massie. It's
Uh,
okay. You can sound smart
no,
like a hey.
well, it's just all these picks are preposterous, anyways. So I'll go. Logan Sargent is gonna get the win.
The
Oh,
entire
Well
say,
done.
podiums
can
and Logan
you
Sargent wins.
see?
And then
I'll
Williams all podium. both Williams cars on the podium.
I'll
Must be a
go
massive crash at the first lap then. That's what Massey's going on. I
the
hope you lay down
first
bets on
quarter.
DraftKings.
If I have to go with anybody, I'll say Signs. I'll go him. Just if it's going to be someone different than you guys. I'm wearing red, so I guess I'll just go with the Ferrari because I think Charles is going to need a few more years before his luck finally turns around there. And we've also got the one thing, Alex, that you wanted to talk about. And we can kind of put it to bed. We're all picking Max Verstappen. That's out the window at this point. Anybody else? But Alex, you wanted to get into the history of Monaco a little bit.
There's a dark,
Ye-
stormy night.
Yeah, yeah. I was I was born when I was very young. No, honestly, I would say that I kind of already have, just with how extensive it is. I don't want to dive into it too deeply,
Mhm.
except it's the only track that has been on the calendar consistently since I want to say the mid 1920s, something like that. Something unnecessarily long ago, barring some interruptions for World War II and some homologation issues in the early 50s. It's, I suppose, the thing that keeps Monaco in the front of my mind, history wise, is that there's so much of it and the race is still so bad. And the race, I mean that completely unironically. The race has never been good by modern era racing standards, let's use the NASCAR definition and say the modern era started in like 1972. Once motorsport evolved to a point that the goal wasn't to go fast and survive, Monaco has just kind of been done for. I mean, if I were to go through all the Monaco Grand Prix since 1972 and add up the on-track passes, I don't think they would equal the 2015 IndyCar Series MAV 500 at California at Fontana at Auto Club.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for the pinnacle of motorsport. I throw up the quotes sarcastically. But I don't know. I mean, there's champagne and there's a swimming pool, and for a while a car would go into the water, and that's always entertaining to some degree, depending on how much of a psychopath you are. So, you know, unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. So I'm trying to learn to love it, and it looks like, based on your F1 career mode record, you kind of already love it. But man, what an odd anomaly on the calendar of what is supposed to be, the highest level of the most extreme sport in the world.
And all the pluses you just said, you could find it like a Motel 6 on Saturday night. Champagne in a car and a swimming pool.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I mean, if you want to see a car recklessly driving way too close to the barriers from a swimming pool, just like pull up to my neighbor's house on a Tuesday night and I'll go by.
So some drunk guy will drive into the pool at some point, so you'll get that as
Yeah.
well.
There you
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
Eventually, that'll happen. The odds are that will happen at some point. But yeah, I'm sorry if winning 4 times at Monaco en route to leading Toro Rosso to a title and then Red Bull to 3 straight means I'm qualified to talk about this. I'm sorry.
Leading Toro Rosso to a
Toro
title,
Rosso.
50% difficulty head ass. I knew it.
He changed the difficulty level. There's no way. He's not telling us the truth.
I led Marussia to a top 10 points finish one year in the standings.
I don't want to hear about your F1 2012 exploits.
Well, on that note, because you brought up IndyCar and I've got the Senna Lego set behind me, let's
Yes.
move over from F1 to IndyCar. We got qualifying out of the way over the last couple of days. We had the original qualifying, Fast 12, Fast 6, the last chance. Nolan Siegel's the one going home. Tom, Alex, whichever one of you guys wants to start with this, or even Massie, thoughts on the way the qualifying went. Kyle Larson qualifies 5th on the NASCAR side of things, and then Team Penske sweeps the front row.
Yeah, I would start with the Kyle Larson real fast. He did pretty good. He's the fastest rookie ever to qualify at the Indianapolis 500. He was consistently up there. This wasn't a situation where the package or anything worked in his favor. He got a lot of speed out of that car. One of his teammates, Callum Ilott, didn't make the top 12, so this was something that he was able to show that he was capable of. He did join 2 other teammates up there, Alexander Rossi and Pato O'Ward, but out of the 4, he was the second highest. So he did really well. The run was really smooth. A lot of guys had a lot of trouble on the south end of the racetrack both days, especially on Sunday. There was a breeze coming out of the west, and so they were getting quite a bit of a tailwind when they were heading through turn 1, and a lot of guys were washing up. You saw that from Nolan Siegel. So he stuck it in there, kept it very smooth, and it was a very impressive run. As far as Team Penske, this is something that is a wonderful storyline based off the fact that they had cheated earlier in the season about getting a speed advantage at the street course of St. Pete. And now they have qualified at the Indianapolis 500, a track that their owner owns in a series that their owner owns. And they were about 7/10 faster. Joseph Newgarden, who's starting on the outside row run, he's 7/10 faster than Alexander Rossi was. Same engines, Chevrolet engines. There's a lot of, there's not a lot of difference in horsepower. There's not a lot of difference in the cars. It's a spec series. And the fact that they were able to get 7/10 more than the rest of the Chevy powered cars impressive. Also makes you wonder, eine Minute bitte? Like, wait a minute here. What's going on? The controversy of the first race is for certain hanging over the heads of all these competitors. And they're going, all right, we are wanting to beat these guys on Sunday. And that is going to be the story. It's going to be Penske versus the field on Sunday. And that's the storyline.
Well, yeah, and quick thing on the speed note, because you were saying they were so much faster than everybody. Scott McLaughlin, 234.220 miles per hour. It's a new pole record. So just blazing speed out there. Alex, Massie, do you guys have anything to add to that?
Man. Fortunately, Tom and I talked about that Penske point that he raised at length on the pit straight just before we hopped in here. But it really is incredible what that team did. And even within the team, Scott McLaughlin ran a pole time of 234.22. Will Power in second place ran something like 233.917. Joseph Newgarden ran 233.808. And then Alexander Rossi ran 233.090. Insane spread among those top four, especially considering that last year I have to get on my high horse about this. Graham Rahal was bumped from the field by Jack Harvey by a factor of 7/1000ths of a mile an hour. Over a 10-mile run at speeds approaching an average of the high 229s. Deep fry me and toss me in 11 herbs and spices, whatever you have to do. This qualifying is finger licking every single year. It really is, man. I tried my best to bring that joke full circle. but really, I mean, where else in the world of sports do you get consistently something just this edge of your seat? And bear in mind, across Saturday and Sunday, it's like 9.5 hours of active track time. It's insane. God, yes, more now.
No charters, no guaranteed spots at the Indy 500. If they need any
Oh.
evidence that that is such a crappy idea, and the entire Frontstretch IndyCar team will sit there and write columns about that every day, it is again an example of this whole weekend. The NASCAR duels at Daytona used to have this. And Massie, you can probably add a little bit more details to this, but I remember that in the 90s, how there were 7, 8, 9, 10 cars in each duel going for that 15th spot, trying to be able to make it either into the field or at least then hopefully finishing as high as possible to be able to get into the Daytona 500. Now with the charters and stuff, there's 42 cars that start that race, 40 cars that start that race, and how many actually enter? There's like 4 cars that were trying to race their way in or something like that. I mean, you lose all that drama. You lose that impact, that human struggle to figure out mechanically and physically how to make a machine go super fast, put it all on the line like Nolan Siegel did, and make this race. Graham Rahal, who has ran really well this year, was on the bubble again 2 years in a row, and a rookie who had never ran at Indianapolis was on trying to bump him out of the race. And if charters were in place or whatever, guaranteed spots, Graham would have been in. It wouldn't have mattered. In fact, it would have ended up bumping, looking at this real fast, it would have ended up bumping Connor Daly, who was 29th. So again, IndyCar, you better be listening to this because that's just the charters, and their reports are that's not coming. But anyway, had to get on my soapbox about that one.
Oh, no,
If it
you're
is coming, I'm
absolutely
getting
right.
involved personally.
You're right though that like the duels at Daytona were so much more awesome when you had like 60 people show up and literally anybody but maybe like the top 7 in points from the previous year were safe.
Yeah.
Like those were, you had some good cars miss races back then.
Now it's like you got 2, maybe 3 guys per duel.
Yeah, even like the rest of the season for NASCAR was entertaining, just the regular qualifying, because you'd
Yeah.
have some big names miss from time to time.
46, 47 guys show up and you still guys go home.
Yeah, so that was refreshing to see that on Saturday, Sunday with IndyCar qualifying. To see the fear that anybody could go home. Now that I was thinking, like, that's only 34 cars for 33 spots, and that was intense. I couldn't imagine if there was 40 cars there, like the actual drama of all that. But as for the Larson, I've been telling people the only way he could have done better is if he stole one of those Penske cars and took it out there. Like saying, Tom, it's a little shady that the owner of the series is swept the front row. But
no kidding.
It's almost like it feels like Penske is kind of taken, like in NASCAR, Denny Hamlin has basically accepted the villain role, right? And he feeds. Kyle Busch used to do the same thing. He eggs on the fans to boo him more. And now it seems like Penske is like turning into that villain in IndyCar. And like that team is very much, which is funny because like they got some very likable, nice guys as their drivers, but it kind of like vilifies them with the whole cheating scandal and just dominating that qualifying run. But real quick, I'll say my favorite part of that entire qualifying session was Rinus VK with Game 7 moment.
Yeah,
I mean, because it looked like everybody was like done for the day. Time's almost out. People are starting to walk back to leave the track and stuff. And all of a sudden, it's like he just emerges and is like, screw you guys. And I'm pretty sure he drove the whole 4 laps with his middle finger up as well. And then got into the fast 12. That was an awesome moment for sure.
Well,
I
you guys,
swear, man.
Yes, that was a good one. I want to add one more moment too for Alex. The last day for the last chance qualifier, you were watching the time when who's the second Ericsson when Ericsson ran out.
Yep.
And you were watching the clock at the speedway. They had the IMS, they had the actual time. I don't know if the NBC broadcast had it up there or not. And it got down to like 30 seconds when Marcus Ericsson finished his run. And then Nolan Siegel, he had to make his run. And Nolan got out with like 30 seconds left to go or whatever. And the entire crowd went crazy because that's what Indianapolis is about. You're up against the clock, really. And this is it. This is the last moment for you to be able to get your butt out there and make that run. And he did it. Graham Rahal did the exact same thing the day before on Saturday. And there's something that's cool about the moment. The fans in Indianapolis really, they get it. There's like this understanding of what's at stake. There's an emotional connection that goes beyond what can be seen on TV. It's a connection the city and the fan base, not just IndyCar fan base, but the 500 fan base has to what's at stake, what is going to happen. And that drama is just like an innate knowledge that everybody has. When they go fast, everybody cheers. You have no favorites. When an underdog has bumped their way back into the field and an overwhelming favorite is looking on the outside in, wild cheers because it's David versus Goliath. And there's something very appreciable about that. It's hard to really capture that without being there in person, but there's this magic that is connected to the fan base and is really amazing. And those moments are all weekend, not just one run, but all weekend. And it's just it's a race on itself. It's not just the Indy fights. It's a race weekend itself, and it's great.
I swear, Adam, you're a music guy. This might resonate with you a bit. If you watched Rinus VK's car roll up to the line at the end of that Saturday session and you didn't hear the Imperial March, You have no soul. And if you watch Nolan Siegel go out with those 30 seconds left and you didn't for some reason hear We Belong by Pat Benatar and envision Jean Girard and Ricky Bobby running to the finish line at Talladega, man, get your testosterone checked.
And for Renus to go out and actually put that sucker in the top 12 and not in the locked in, that would be from 13 to 30, so he doesn't have to come back at all. I mean, who wants to do that? You have no idea what this car is going to do. The crews spend weeks and months massaging the crap out of these Indy cars before the 500, filling all the seams and making them go as fast as possible. Then you end up crashing this thing, and it's like Alex with his fender bender. Like he totaled his car just a few days ago. And you don't
What
see
the
him getting
hell?
it out on the streets, do you? And here's Renus taking that car and saying to himself, mentally and physically, I'm going to put this in the top 12 because I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do this. And I'm not just going to put it in the show, but I'm going to get up there because I want to fight to get up there as close as I can. The dude ends up qualifying 7th for the Indianapolis 500 with a car he wrecked on the first day of qualifying. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I gotta ask you guys this because we've got, and that's the thing about Indies, you never really know, who could win. Obviously, Penske is, kind of the powerhouse right now and everything, but they're also kind of the bad guys. It feels like at this point against the whole field. So give me, let me do this just because the field's so big and it's so even at times. Give me 2 dark horses for the win and your actual winner.
Alex, go ahead. You go first, buddy.
And you can
Oh
pick the same
man.
people. We're not going to do different people.
2 dark horses for the win. Okay. First, I'm gonna say for some reason Kiffin Simpson.
Okay.
And the only reason I say that is not necessarily because I'm impressed by the performance of the number 4 team at large, but I'm impressed by Simpson's performance to go early in the day. He ran 3rd on Saturday, and to finish Saturday qualified in what, 18th, I think, average speed 231.948, something like that, is pretty good for a driver that has kind of been nowhere the entire season and already had a reputation as a driver who, whether it's right or wrong, wasn't really in that seat on merit. Otherwise, there's a few people on the front stretch staff that might burst into flames, and I say this, but I would call Santino Ferrucci a dark horse, not because him winning would be unexpected, but just because it would be so unpopular. But holy crap, man. You look at what he's done around the speedway in his handful of attempts. It's insane. He has the best average finish at the speedway of anybody in the field, as far as I can recall. And he's absolutely, I think magical would be too soft of a term. He's like demonic at Indianapolis. So Lord, if that car works and he doesn't get hit by Renus VK on pit road, then that's a problem.
All right, who's your winner?
Scott McLaughlin.
Okay.
It's got to be. If he keeps that car in clean air, yikes.
Tom?
Man, this is a tough one just because you just don't know. So previously, Honda has been really good at this race, but now the script has completely changed to a new page this year. They put, I think, 9 in the top 12, maybe 8 in the top 12, and they actually swept the top 8. So very impressive. So usually you would have gone with Ganassi in previous years. So now they're actually the dark horse this year because their highest that they had qualify was Alex Palou, who, if we had had this podcast before qualifying and we had talked about this before they rolled into the month of May, Alex and I would have been all over the favorite to win this race is Alex Palou because of his performance there in the last 2 to 3 years. He
Right.
almost won the year that 2021 with Elio. He didn't have the experience to combat his experience there, the way Elio was driving. And then, of course, he dominated last year until he got in pit incident with Renus VK. So I'm picking Alex Palou as one of my dark horses because he's low enough and I feel like that qualifies, but I also feel like he would be a favorite as well. So I'm taking that one. And then probably the second one is going to be Colton Herta, another Honda. He, in the practice today, had a car that was working in traffic really well. Just watched 2 hour practice. The conditions were a little bit hotter than what's projected for Sunday. Sunday is supposed to be right now, far enough, totally up in the air. But right now, my weather app telling me 79 degrees and cloudy. So thank gosh for those who are sitting melting in the stands, i.e. me. So that's going to be really good conditions. So if those conditions present themselves, I feel like guys that are deeper in the pack, Herta starting 13th is going to be able to move up to the front. My favorite to win, Scott McLaughlin, is definitely a good pick. I really have a strong feeling that he is the guy to do it just from the pole. However, his run at Indianapolis has not been great. He has also not ran very well at ovals. He has continued to learn, much like Will Power did back in the early IRL days. He learned ovals, and now he's basically an oval king. Scott will get there. So I'm not going to go 500 miles, Scott McLaughlin. I'm actually going to look at number 2, which is Will Power, starting number 2. My son is a big Will Power fan, and he was super disappointed that Will Power did not get the pole, but that shouldn't be a problem. Will Power's starting on the front row, and he has actually had a really strong year this year, and I think that that trend will continue. He's won here before, and I think that his team, his way around here, his oval experience is going to be the key on Sunday, as long as the engines hold up.
Well, to shout out my buddy Jason, the thing he's told me multiple times, speaking of Will Power, is he went a few years ago, the 2018 500, I think was the Power one. And he said, we finally made a trip to go out to Indy, and all we got was we were baking in the seats, and Will Power, like the Will Power won instead of like somebody else. That's his 500 experience, but he and myself and a couple other friends talking about maybe doing a trip up there soon.
That race was the hottest race on record. I
Yeah.
think actually it missed it by 1 degree. Like something in 1933 ended up beating it. How the heck they pulled that up, I have no idea. But anyway, that was blazing hot. I have never been at a race where I was happy it was over so I could go home.
Massie, how about
1933
you?
was rough.
Yeah. What? So, I was thinking Ferrucci for dark horse, but I'll go different. I don't know. Would Larson count as a dark horse?
I would count him as it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, he isn't a great car, but I'll throw him out there as one. And then the other one is the guy who, if he does pull it off, it should have been his third consecutive Indy 500 win, from the last row to drinking the milk, Marcus Ericsson.
That's a good one.
For the pick for the actual win, I guess you gotta go we gotta ride out the Penske train, right? And you guys picked the other two, so we'll double down on the villainy. And Joseph Newgarden goes back to back for the first time since another Penske guy, Elio, and he gets out and he's like, "Yeah, we cheated. What are you gonna do about it?"
Man,
Well,
if I can say one more thing before I shut up for the NASCAR segment, I mean, like Massie, Adam, you guys know this. Roger Penske is a very old man, and I'm going somewhere with this, I promise.
okay.
Roger Penske comes from an era where the mantra was "Don't wreck your teammate." And Roger Penske, aside from Santino Ferrucci, might have the 3 drivers in the series who are the least concerned with the well-being of their teammates. What is this? Keep an eye out for what this looks like. If, first of all, let's assume that they all make it through the first lap. But keep an eye on what this looks like if it comes down to the final 15 laps and all 3 of those Penske cars are in the top 5.
So you're saying possibly no holds barred, take no prisoners. Penske's cars wrecking each other potentially for the win.
I'm saying that not a single driver on the Penske roster is going to care about the well-being of the team on overall.
And Joseph Newgarden has he has a history of that.
Yes.
He did that with Simon Pagenaud at a Gateway, I think, the first Gateway race. He almost ran him up into the wall, so he's not
Yeah.
scared about that.
So
Well,
you're
it's funny.
calling,
It's funny. Given the not Massey, go ahead.
you say you're calling for a thirsty three-way wreck.
Well, the
Well,
thirsty three-way goes crazy.
I think it's funny. You guys had 9 total picks between you, and none of you guys picked any of the 3 that I'm picking. So that worked out pretty well. So I'm taking. It's probably more.
talking about. Sorry.
So I'm taking probably the 2 storylines here. For dark horses, I'm going Ed Carpenter. Feels like he's got to win it at some point because he keeps trying, and he's probably going to try until he's dead. Like when he's like 79, he'll be piloting a car around this place trying to win this damn thing. And the other one is Connor Daly because he runs sneakily well. He has some really bad luck. Like I think it was a couple years ago, he was running like top 3, top 2 pretty consistently when he had like the Air Force car, I think it was. Then he had a tire hit the nose of his car on the backstretch.
That's right.
But he looked like he was gonna be in the mix for the win at the end there. So those are my 2 dark horses. And Larson's kind of an easy one, but those are my 2. And I'm going for the win. I'm not gonna say Rossi wins his second, but I'm sticking with McLaren, and I'm gonna go Pato Award because he's been damn close the last 2-3 years. Last year he ended up wrecking when he was in the top 3, I think. And I'm gonna say he finally gets it done this year, and the Penske Titanship falls at Indy. Or they all wreck each other and Pato wins anyway. Either way, it'll work. Very, very quickly, for those who might not be super into the weeds on it, Tom and or Alex, can you walk me through the Penske? Can you walk all of us through the Penske controversy and where they're at this point? Like where maybe the mindset is of the IndyCar garage?
So I would start with the fact that there's penalties that are also in place for this race too, to keep in mind. Joseph Newgarden is missing his strategist who was suspended, Tim Cindric, who is the team president, and multiple race engineers. I think Willpower and Joseph's car are affected by that. So perhaps that plays a part. Tim Cindric has been on the pit box for Joseph Newgarden his entire career with Penske. So he's won 2 championships with that guy, and he's won 1 Indy 500. So that's going to be a storyline. I would say that the feeling in the garage is much like we've already discussed in the paddock. Sorry, garage, paddock, whatever. There's garage doors on those buildings. So why they call it a paddock and not a garage, I have no idea. Anyway, the feeling in there is that it's everybody versus Penske. If you watch the broadcast on NBC of the qualifying, you can see the consternation that a guy like Alexander Rossi has towards Penske right now. He was interviewed and he's slightly annoyed with the fact that he said they had a lot of talk coming from them, meaning Penske. Indy Star ran a story about Santino Ferrucci and the AJ Foyt technical relationship and how he thought that Penske was not giving enough credit to the lead engineer on AJ Foyt, whose name is Michael Cannon, and they weren't giving him enough credit for getting all the speedway secrets. He's known for being able to trim out cars, stuff like that, well beyond my knowledge. So there is a lot of animosity that is completely directed at this 3-car team, and they're leading that entire field to the green on Sunday.
Well, so I'll use that to transfer directly, unless Alex, you had anything to add. Okay, so I'll transfer directly into the other series Penske has a team in, and that's NASCAR. Coca-Cola 600 will cap things off that Sunday as we get to 1.5 miles, which have been on the rise as of late in terms of the on-track product. So let's start with this, Massie. Between all of us, you'll be at the 500, but you've been to the 600. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I've been.
Okay.
2019 is the one Kyle Busch led like the entire way.
Right, he read like 398 laps or something like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll kick it off to you first. Thoughts on what we're going to see on Sunday with how good 1.5 miles have been, and yeah, let's start with that. With the next gen, 1.5 miles have been so much better.
Well, if you just watched the Kansas race a couple weeks ago, I think that's kind of what you can expect. Now, I'm not saying that we'll have a 1,000th of a second margin of victory, but I think we'll see a lot of different lanes coming along and real tight racing, a lot of lead changes. I'm really excited. Like the Coke 600 you could argue it's been the best race on the schedule for the past 2 years. That wasn't always the case, but it's had with this new car. I certainly hate on this new car a lot, but the fact that it has made the Coke 600 an awesome race again, I do appreciate that part. So yeah, I think there was a time where I would easily say the Indy 500 will be the most entertaining race of the day. There were years and years where I would say that, but now it's a little more up for debate between those two races. I could see it going either way on Sunday as far as which one's the most entertaining.
Yeah, last couple of years, 2022, most notable for the Chris Buescher flip in the infield that kind of came out of nowhere, and the fact they were like four wide on the front stretch at various points, and Denny Hamlin ended up winning that, and then last year was the rain delay to Monday, in which Hamlin ended up in the wall that time thanks to Chase Elliott, led to a suspension for Elliott for one race, and Ryan Blaney ended up winning eventually en route to a championship last season. Tom, Alex, let me throw to you guys really quick thoughts on the 600, how it's been the last few years as opposed to how it had been prior, and what you're expecting this year.
It's like Massie said, he's absolutely right. It has actually been the better race. IndyCar has struggled with this 18 aero kit. Cars are not able to pass as easily and deep in the pack because of the aero. So it's actually been really refreshing. You sit in traffic for 2.5 hours to get out of the Indy 500, and then you go home and you're able to watch the Coca-Cola 600. And the last couple of seasons have been so entertaining that you really aren't sure who's going to come out of it at the end. And the 600 miles, it matters. Like you mentioned Kyle Busch leading 398 laps or whatever. That may not be the case this weekend. And somebody who might lead early is not going to be up there at the end of the race. Somebody actually work on their car and get it better. And going back to those type of races where, the driver skill and the management of everything is always a good thing. It's put it in the driver's hands. And Kansas was a fantastic race. So unfortunately, you didn't quite get the whole repeat of Bristol at North Wilkesboro, sounds like. So hopefully you do get a repeat of a good race on a similar track from Kansas to Charlotte this weekend. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Alex?
Every year, the experience of watching the 500, especially since I've come on with Frontstretch, and then getting everything done for the rest of the day and settling in for the 600 is almost like an out of body experience. But that being said, I agree entirely that the next gen car has kind of saved Charlotte Oval as a racing product.
Right.
I don't know how much I think it actually needed saved up until the 2018-2019 aero package happened with the reduced horsepower in NASCAR. But I just can't let anything be positive anymore. I'm too old and cranky for that. So let me say something.
Oh no.
Everybody stop. There is no race in the world that should have Adam, can I say the F word?
Sure.
Thank you. There is no race in the world that should have a fucking halftime. None. Absolutely not. And I don't like, geez, here we go. I'm starting. I don't like
He's
the way
triggered,
that
guys.
the way that NASCAR set this up when they trialed it so that anybody who had anything negative to say about it had to preface it with, now I support our troops, but, because then everybody knows that you're a terrorist, like you can't get away from that. So the audacity of the sport to break up this feat of endurance, this juggernaut of a race that they have, one of their crown jewels. God, I like the troops too, but what does that have to do with the Coca-Cola 600?
Hey, I'm in the military now, and I completely agree with you. Do
There
that
we
crap at the
go.
beginning of the race. I want to watch a race from start to finish. This
You
ain't
want,
football.
yeah,
Let's go.
Well,
you
I'm in
want
the
to
same
talk
boat
about the
because
rights
I
that our
remember when
military
they
fights for.
well, I remember when they do all that pageantry beforehand, like do that before the race.
Yes,
And they do it before the race, so I don't know why we still need the halftime.
you jackasses.
I think they should stop every stage and do
I think they should
Oh,
stop
jeez.
every single lap. They should
every
stop.
lap. Yeah. But no, the worst part is if they genuinely had the car stop and had a legit moment of silence for the fallen soldiers, like that's one thing.
Right.
But to do it and have just big across the screen presented by Coca-Cola, it just feels like a 1 minute Coca-Cola ad.
This solemn tribute to the fallen defenders of our nation is brought to you by soft drink number 70 on the market. Like okay, so the race itself, but actually let's go off of what just happened. We're recording this Monday night. This just happened last night. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. versus Kyle Busch. Kyle dumps Ricky on lap 2 of the race after feeling like Ricky forced him into the wall, and Ricky says he's gonna wait. He indeed waits. After the race, throws a punch that kind of sort of connects. His dad goes after Kyle Busch. Our former front stretcher Davey Siegel goes down in the aftermath. Bob Pockris goes down. Everything's happening in the hauler area. Does this boil over on Sunday, or are they kind of done?
I think they're done. I think Ricky got his payback by putting his fists into Kyle Busch's face. And why would you need to continue, a feud from there? I mean, Ricky did say when they were arguing, he's like, "I'll wreck you at Charlotte," and Kyle had the best response that any driver's ever had when he said that. He's like, do it. Like it doesn't matter. I suck just as much as you do.
And Northwest
Yeah.
is already selling a shirt.
That's awesome.
I mean, how can then you go then wreck a guy that says that? Like, or you could be racing for 20th and then you just dump him. I think that thing. I mean, they're not going to be best friends or anything. They've had their feuds in the past, and I think they'll always kind of have a disrespect toward each other. But you're not. Neither of them wants to carry this on to the next week. I'm pretty certain of that.
Well, we're going to touch on the elephant in the room in the room in a minute. But first off, couple of forward notes here. Stewart Haas Racing, some chaos going on there earlier today. Chase Briscoe posted on Reddit that he was checking it as much as anyone to figure out what was going on with his own team. And then Kevin Hart made the comment about it's nice to see the owner like multiple times in a week or something like that when he was working with Hendrick after having previously been with Stewart Haas. Ford's now won 2 in a row. What are your thoughts on this whole chaotic situation with Stewart Haas, and on a bigger scale, is Ford finally finding something? What's going on with them?
I'll say the Stewart Haas situation to me is like 4 kids whose parents have decided to be deadbeat parents and not work and just lay on the couch all day and not help their kids at all. That's the 2 owners, Gene Haas and Tony Stewart, are those 2 deadbeat parents, and the 4 kids are the 4 drivers right now. And that despite the owners being that way, these 4 kids are pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, and they are just working really hard and doing the best that they can to get ahead. And so I really appreciate from those 4 guys to see they're not just giving up. They're not just phoning it in. They're trying to get better despite the owners. So that's the situation there. And yeah, Ford is getting better. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if a Stewart Haas car actually won at some point this year.
Yeah.
Like maybe Noah steals one.
600. Like,
Yeah, steal the Josh Berry. Yeah, Briscoe could win somewhere. Yeah, so I wouldn't count them out just yet, but yeah, that is a little embarrassing that uh a driver has to check Reddit just as much as the fans to see what the status is of his job. That's a little ridiculous.
Yeah, so and it also feels like the racing gods owe Busher one, so maybe he ends up winning this week, makes 3 in a row for Ford. Tom, Alex, what are your guys' thoughts on where all this stands?
I don't follow the situation too closely just because NASCAR is kind of it's a unique racing that just I'm not part of as close as I used to be. So I'm not too tied to it, but it does seem like that I find it fascinating. I'm curious about the requirement or the necessity of like Tony Stewart and his requirement to have to be around all the time for them to make decisions, for them to operate. The operational side of things is what interests me. And I would figure that the team has a president in place, somebody who's running the team day to day. And so I hear a lot of criticism. In fact, Tony's not around, Tony Stewart, but isn't Gene Haas around? I mean, he's also there. That's what the H stands for in there. So I kind of am lost in that understanding of that. Why does he doesn't make the day-to-day. What do they want him to sit there and make calls on pit road so that he can, or be there just so that say, oh, this truck over here has got a smidge on it. Somebody go clean that. Like, what exactly do they need him to be around to do? You hire people, you hire leaders to manage your operations. So I'm not sure how that all happens. Now, whether or not he's no longer interested in running his company as a NASCAR company, it always seemed like Robin Miller always said that Tony Stewart worked as a NASCAR driver so he could drive his sprint cars and do his hobby, which was all this other crap he does on the side. So perhaps that passion and is not there. And so if that ends up leading to the team downsizing and everything like that, so be it. Maybe somebody else can just come up and buy into the team or whatever. I mean, I don't understand how this he's played such a big role into it. What else is causing the team to like constrict or possibly be a fire sale because they don't have sponsors because Tony's not involved. I just don't understand that aspect of it.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam and Massie, but Haas F1 was established, made its debut in 2016, and I recall over the past couple years hearing a switch that first it was Haas F1 was losing money and they were considering just letting the team die quietly. And then I was hearing that Gene was interested in moving assets away from Stewart Haas to prop up Haas F1. And I'm curious from the NASCAR side, has there been this concern that like Haas doesn't really have Stewart Haas, I should say, doesn't really have any leadership that has Stewart Haas Racing at the front of their mind?
Massie,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that is the issue. It's just everybody's knows like NHRA is the big deal for Tony right now, right? And I think Haas, the F1 team, and the other interest he has are at the forefront. Or so I think the two of them did a great job setting up a team, right? They went and won 2 championships pretty early in their existence and went and got Kevin Harvick. And Harvick, the thing is that I just feel like to your point, Tom, like the having them around. So like their competition director right now has been in place since almost the start of the team. But like in racing, doesn't the sport kind of move past you at some point? If you're trying to do the same stuff you did in 2010 and apply it to 2024. So I just think they've handed it off to people that have gotten older, kind of aged out of the sport, and they're not around to see that, hey, we need to make changes at these key personnel positions. That would be I would think the biggest advantage to having them around more, because it's almost like they set everything up, got to where they were winning, and then the two owners kind of went and did their separate things. They're like, we got Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch there, like they can hold down the fort. And now Harvick and Busch are both gone. You got 4 young drivers that kind of need that guidance, I guess. So that would be my explanation, my rough explanation for it.
So I kind of get the sense that this team is kind of going down the road of what Roush went down before
Yeah.
Keselowski bought into it. Does that seem like that they're following that parallel path where they just kind of lost like trajectory of keeping up?
Yeah, I think that's a great comparison. It's Roush because Roush, was a super team of the 2000s, and then I want to say I heard that like when Brad and them came in there, it was like all this equipment and stuff that was like outdated. So it's just very similar situations. I'm sure. I'm not. I don't know for a fact that stuff at Stewart Haas is outdated, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did have some outdated stuff.
Well, we've got okay, I'm going to hold off on Larson again. And I want to touch on the winners before I forget about it. Everyone give me your dark horse and your actual winner for the Coca-Cola 600. So we can have our predictions locked down.
I knew
Whoever wants to go first, don't all go at once.
I knew you were gonna ask. I still took no time to actually think about who was going to. So dark horse. I'm trying to think who.
Casey
So
Canyon.
I would, yeah, Casey. I would consider anyone outside of Hendrick and Gibbs, maybe outside RFK as well, to be a dark horse.
Okay.
And with that, I'm gonna go. Oh man, this is a tough one. I'll tell you the pick for the win first because I am picking Chris Buescher. He's been on such a roll recently. Yeah. And as for the dark horse, let's reach a little bit. I want to do something that's like, oh man, I'm struggling on this one. Let's throw Bubba Wallace out there as a
All right. Tom.
Oh man, I was going to take Busher as the winner just
Oh, you
because
can. I'm picking him too.
I know, but I just want to try and make this at least a little bit of a toss up so we don't all sound like the same. So if I end up picking somebody out of the blue, I can sound so freaking intelligent and amazing. So let's see. I don't know if he falls in a dark horse or as a possible winner, but I really liked what Brad Keselowski has done with his team. Now that he's finally broke through that into victory lane with as an owner, um, perhaps that just makes that happen more often for him because he had so many runner-ups since he went into the sixth car. So the fact that he's there, I'm really liking him as the guy that's going to run really well, and that the Ford has run great. So I'm going to choose him as my winner. And a dark horse, let's go with Noah Gragson because Gragson has run well, right? I think he's been one of the better Stewart Haas guys. I see his name in the top 10 all the time. My son picks him in NASCAR fantasy and keeps beating me with him all the time. So I'm going to go with him.
Okay. So a team that needs momentum this year that I know what happened at Atlanta, but a team that has not been where I think a lot of people thought they would be is Trackhouse. Just they haven't had the consistent every week speed that I feel like we saw out of them the past couple seasons. Somehow, in complete contrast to his overall character, Ross Chastain is going to run a very quiet, subdued, clean race on the third lane of the track and show up out of nowhere in a fuel mileage finish reminiscent of 2007. And somehow Kyle Petty is going to finish third again. That's the dark horse.
I remember that race.
Me too.
I also remember the race he actually won in '87. So that takes me back a little bit.
Wow.
4 years old.
Okay. Jeez, this guy. For the actual winner, so Kyle Larson, man. Just Kyle Larson. I mean,
What happens if he wins the 500 though, Alex? Is he going to be able to get there on time?
Oh, they'll move the race. Who are we kidding?
Yeah,
He's a
they
Hendrick
showed
driver.
last night They will delay the 600 will start at 8 in the morning if it
Hey,
next day.
Monday's the holiday, so yeah, I would not be shocked if they did.
It'll be the first race that goes from nighttime to daytime.
Yeah, man. That sounds absolutely
24 hours of the
terrible.
sun coming up over turn 3, and everyone's blinded, and Larson wins because everyone wrecks. So I'm going with Buescher as my winner. I'm also doing that. And for dark horse, I considered Carson Hocevar, and like some sort of miraculous. He's gonna win at some point for Spire either way, but it's some sort of like miraculous fuel mileage deal. Eric Jones, I considered. You know what? He's been close a few times, mostly at super speedways the last couple of years. Todd Gillen, screw it. Todd Gillen's gonna get a win. It's going to be the Coca-Cola 600. He's going to get a crown jewel as his first. Front row is going to play it right. Mike McDowell is going to bump draft him all the way around, and the front row is going to go 1-2 at Charlotte of all things. Why not? So, all right, and this is how we're going to end this elephant in the room. Kyle Larson doing the double. How does he do overall? Obviously, Alex is predicting he'll win the 600. But how does he do overall? Does this beget other drivers doing? Because it's been 10 years. Kurt Busch did it 10 years ago. Where do you guys think, from obviously the NASCAR and IndyCar perspectives, do you think this will encourage more people to do it? Because there's been stuff circulating about Justin Haley has said he was approached to do it. Kyle Busch, there's been rumors about him potentially doing it. I think it'll lead to more people trying to attempt it. But what do you guys think?
I think he has actually set a good way of doing it, because they announced this program 18 months ago. So he has actually used a year to warm up to this rather than announcing it, say, in April and then coming in May to do it.
Right.
That is a very, very good approach, because they tested. He was able to get around, I think, in the fall at least once, and then he ended up going Gateway, I think, to go test. I hope it opens the door. I actually hope that it opens the door for him to be, or other drivers, just to be interested in doing other oval races for IndyCar. They saw what Jimmy Johnson was capable of doing. He finished top
Both at Iowa.
sixes at Iowa and Texas, right? So there is a connection, or a possibility for guys to be able to merge over to the other series on the ovals at least and be able to compete. So perhaps with the aero screen, they feel a little bit safer, because that's always been the underlying reason that guys haven't come over from stock car world, is because of the open air cockpits. But with the aero screen, it got Jimmy Johnson, it's got Kyle Larson. So hopefully it brings some guys over. They obviously need good rides, and McLaren stepped up to do this. That will always be the hindrance, is whether or not there's a team out there that's going to put a driver in it. Ryan Reinbold, nobody's going to go ride with Ryan Reinbold. But if it's McLaren, Penske, etc., there's the possibility.
Yeah, for sure. Man, Kyle Busch not doing it back in, I want to say it was 2021, 2022 that he was expressing interest, maybe 2023, is a real shame. And it's frustrating that I was in preschool back in like 1999 to 2004 when this was actually happening every year. Robbie Gordon was doing it a lot. Tony Stewart did it twice. Put your hands down, Tom. I know I'm young.
I feel so old.
but
Hey, that doesn't mean he was preschool age. He failed it a couple.
I've
There
seen
was-
every double that has occurred at the 500 since John Andretti did it. So
Oh,
I feel
no.
ancient now.
For some reason, I want to see this go the other way, where instead of a NASCAR driver leaving to go to Indianapolis and then come back to Charlotte, I want to see an IndyCar driver hop into the 600 in like the third Spire car, or maybe the money team comes back, and
Yeah.
for some reason or another, don't shake your head, I haven't given up yet. For some reason or another, Santino Ferrucci just shows up at the 600 in the number 50 car sponsored by Pit Viper. Um, it's such a crazy feat. I know that Kyle Larson is a great driver. That's why I chose him to win the 600. But what is it? I can't imagine physically what it's like to hop out of the Indy 500 doing 215, 225 mile an hour laps pulling those kind of G forces, then to fly down to Charlotte and get in a stock car for 600 miles at 130 degrees in the cockpit, something like that. I can see why nobody does it. I mean, because like, what kind of hatred of yourself do you have to want to do that?
Alex, who would you think from the IndyCar field would do it first out of all the drivers?
Oh man, who's like the most young and the strapping young lad, the
I
most
think
athletic?
it's
It's
Scott
Newgarden.
McLaughlin.
Psychotic?
Yeah, I think Scott would do it.
Yeah,
I
I
was
think
gonna say
Mac would
Scott
do it.
do I could see Scott.
I
Yeah.
could see Joseph doing it just because he's so physically committed to the sport. But yeah, Scott would do it just out of like just for the chaos, I would say. I think Ferrucci would do it for a similar reason. Connor Daly, he
Yeah.
can kind of manage himself in a stock car.
He and Santino, yeah, they've run
Yeah.
races.
Sage Karam, if he ever ends up an IndyCar driver again, which I don't think he will. I think he's moved on from that, internally. But hell,
Uh,
put Sato in a car.
I will say Newgarden might not want to just because he did do SRX and he got showed up by a bunch of guys whose primes were before Alex was born.
He won a heat though, didn't he?
I think he might have. Yeah.
He won the first heat, but that
I
was
just
because he got the draw like in his favor, I think, and just led the first heat at Nashville or whatever.
Yeah, nobody could pass. I just remember trying to talk to him afterwards, and he was not too happy a camper. But yeah, no. So I think the Larson deal. I do think he'll get top 10 in both races, top 5 in NASCAR for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe he does better because Tony Stewart did what, like 6th and 3rd or 3rd and 6th.
Yes.
I don't remember the.
He did
Sixth and
six
third.
in 2001, and I think he finished third in the Coke 600. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Six.
that's the best double. So Larson could theoretically top that, get like a 5th and a 2nd or something. Yeah, but I think like if I'm Ryan Blaney, and I'd be like, hey Roger, because he's on a first name basis with him probably. I just won the 600. I just won the championship. I feel like you could put a monkey in a Penske Indy car and it would have got the front row. Like this was the year for Ryan Blaney to do it, right? But I would love to, seeing that speed like Logano and Blaney and Cindric. Which Cindric, honestly, I could see him doing it someday. But like, I think any of those three, why would they not be itching to do it after seeing how fast those Penske Indy cars are? But yeah, outside of that, we don't need any more money team because they gave Connor Daly a car that had hydraulics around Daytona. The thing was going boom, 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 boom. And yeah, outside of Penske crossover, it'd just be tough with all the charters. You were like the 4-car limit, like to get someone else, like maybe Rick Ware could put someone in a car. Catherine Legg double maybe, but yeah, it's just I want to see it go both ways as well. But there's just too much politics involved. I'm glad that McLaren and Hendrick were like good sports about it, actually work together because that usually doesn't happen.
I'm gonna break the internet right here.
Oh, no.
SVG double 2026.
That would be cool.
Ooh.
Obviously, McLaughlin shows you can transition to an Indy car from that sports car or the V8. So yeah, he could do it.
Quickly.
Does NASCAR allow a lot of testing though anymore? So like the guys that would try to jump over from IndyCar to NASCAR, would they get much opportunity to get comfortable?
I think they would get one test. I
Wow.
think SVG and like those guys that have come over recently only got one test.
Wow.
But you get some time.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Well, I mean, we've had our share of memorable moments at each of these 3 events the last few years. I mean, okay, maybe not Monaco. The last memorable one I can remember was Ricardo with a kind of sort of upset win in 2018. Kind of sort of. Indy 500, you had Scott Dixon's massive flip back in 2017. Last year, which like I don't know if maybe it was just like the initial like shock, maybe made me psychologically like erase this for a bit. But the Kyle Kirkwood incident last year where the tire almost flew into the stands. We had Ericsson almost winning back to back in back to back years. Pagano versus Rossi a few years ago. Helio winning a couple years ago. The Indy 500, I think, in recent memory has been the best, but the last years of the 600 have also been pretty phenomenal. So I think we've got three great races. I'll throw it to you guys. What do we have? Who is Julio? Elio Massie. Um, so what do you guys have coming up this week in terms of any content on Frontstretch? Obviously, this is Adam Cheek Sports Week, but for Frontstretch, what do you guys have coming up?
Alex, what do we have coming up on the IndyCar side?
Yeah,
Too
you guys
much,
just finished
man.
recording.
Too much. Yeah, we just finished recording the pit straight, which I don't know when Adam's going to release this, but it went
Tomorrow night?
live. Okay, it went live this morning. We've got Christopher DeHardy's Upon Further Review column coming tomorrow. And then Tom's going to lead us into the Indy 500 weekend with preview like normal, maybe. I assume so.
Yep.
Yeah, he's nodding his head. I haven't worked
Yep.
that out yet. There we go.
Yeah,
Confirmed.
yeah, we just worked it out right now.
Tom watch. And then Massie, sitting in his throne, looking down at the site as a whole, can say a bit more about the NASCAR side. F1 is we will write what Verstappen allows us to write.
Yeah, so obviously frontstretch.com as a whole has the whole weekend covered, all three series, well, multiple series, but all three of the racing organizations will have find the greatest coverage out there, our YouTube page as well. As for me, I'll be at Indianapolis. We'll probably write some stuff up there. We'll get some videos up there. But before that, I did an interview today with Roy Hendrick, who's the son of Ray Hendrick, who just got nominated for the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And he's basically making the case for why his dad should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure when that's going to go up. It might go up tonight, or should I say yesterday, if this is coming out tomorrow. But
Tuesday night,
yeah, so
Wednesday morning, same difference.
yeah, so look for that on frontstretch.com very soon.
Well, and I'll have real racing content of that TBD. The Stock Car Scoop, of course, on Sunday. Tom, I believe we talked about doing it post 500, post 600.
Yep. Yeah, we did.
And obviously, you can follow Massie and Alex. Plug your social medias. Let's do that. I'm at Adam and Cheek on Twitter. Plug yours.
I'm at Tom Blackburn 42 on Twitter.
I'm also on that app, unfortunately, at Alex Gintz 1.
M_Massie 22.
Well, we've got a huge weekend. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We're at like an hour 15. So I think we did a good job covering everything. I was like, let's do like 30, 45 minutes. And I think we hit on just about everything we need to. We went through every note I had. So I think we're all set. But thank you guys again for joining me. I'm looking forward to this greatest day in motorsports as always.
Hell
Thanks
yeah,
for
brother.
having me.
Well, we've got Monaco in the morning, Indy in the afternoon, NASCAR at night, unless they move it back to Kyle Larson, which might be NASCAR morning in America. We'll see. But we'll talk to you guys then. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.